Okay, good morning to all of you. In our last class, we have been discussed in detail about divergence in terms of orthogonal curvilinear coordinate system, that is your OCCS. In today's class, we are going to discuss curl in terms of orthogonal curvilinear coordinate system, or that is your OCCS. Okay, so let's start. So as we know that the curl, that is your del cross, will be always operate on a vector function. So only for that we are going to consider first a vector point function, that is your a, which is the function of u v w, means this vector point function has been considered in OCCS. So let us consider a, which is the function of u v w, be a vector point function in orthogonal curvilinear coordinate system. Okay, so here a1, a2, a3 are the components of a. This is the a, whatever we have been considered the vector in OCCS, where a1, a2, a3 are the components of the vector a along e1 cap, e2 cap, e3 cap respectively, where e1 cap, e2 cap, e3 cap are the unit vectors along the tangent to the curve where these curves are intersect. So in the OCCS, this is your u v w curves. At this point they are intersects, and this is your e1 cap, e2 cap, e3 cap are the unit vectors along the tangent to the curves. Okay, now a vector will be written as a1 e1 cap, we know h1 del u previously. Here you can see whenever we discussed gradient in terms of orthogonal curvilinear coordinates, at the end we found here del phi or del u is nothing but e1 cap by h1, right? So e1 cap will be h1 into del u. Here you can see e1 cap will be h1 into del u, e2 cap will be h2 into del v, e3 cap will be h3 into del w. So that we are going to substitute over here that e1 cap will be h1 del u, e2 cap h2 del v, e3 cap h3 del w. As we found this one, e1 cap this much, e2 cap this much, e3 cap this much, whatever we have discussed. Now we have to consider the curl of this vector, that is your del cross a. That means del cross will be operate on a, that is called as your curl of vector a. So del cross a will be equal to del cross this term, del cross this term, del cross this term also. Okay, so del cross a1 h1 del u plus del cross a2 h2 del v, del cross h2 a2, I just written alternately, no problem. Both are scalars, so I can write a2 into h2 or I can write h2 into a2, no problem, into del v plus del cross h3a3 del w, del cross h3a3 del w. Let this is your equation number 1. Now we are going to consider the vector identity, that is your del cross phi into a, one scalar one vector. If like this, according to vector identity, this value will be phi del cross a plus del phi cross a, right? So here we can see that if we are going to consider one of the term of the RHS of this equation number 1, here you can see exactly this format we can found as compared with this one. Here del cross one scalar one vector, here del cross this one h1 a1 is the scalar, del u is a vector. So this term also same format, this term also same format. First we have to consider the first term, this term of this equation number 1. Now consider first term of RHS of equation number 1, that is your del cross h1 a1 del u will be equal to, by using this vector identity, this will be, here you can see phi scalar del cross a, the scalar is your h1 a1 del cross the vector, here the vector is del u, del cross del u plus del scalar in cross vector, del scalar is your, here is your h1 a1 del h1 a1 cross the vector del u, by applying vector identity. Here I written, let this is your equation number 2, right? So here you can see that this term will be 0. Why? Del u cross del, because we know that del cross del a, you just take any vector and you can prove it easily that this value will be 0. Why? Del cross a phi, suppose we are going to consider one scalar, del cross del phi will be 0, because you consider this one phi 1. First if you are consider del phi, this value will be I cap del phi by del x plus j cap del phi by del y plus k cap del phi by del z. Then del cross means I cap j cap k cap and del by del x, del by del y, del by del z, and this value will be del phi by del x, del phi by del y, del phi by del z. If you are going to solve it, you can find answer will be 0. Okay, here you can see I cap, first term I am going to do for you, I cap into del square phi by del y del z minus, here you can see del square phi by del z del y, both are same, will be 0, and likewise j cap k cap term will be cancelled out and we are going to get 0. Likewise if del cross del phi will be 0, likewise here del cross del u, this term will be 0, so this will be 0 plus this term as usual written, nothing changed. Okay, this one. Now that implies del cross this one, del cross h1 a1 del u will be equal to, here you can see that this is your, this one, you just consider this one is nothing but gradient of a scalar function, del h1 a1 is the scalar function, so del h1 a1 is nothing but gradient of this one. So by using gradient in OCCS, what we can write, you just check your note, this is your gradient of a scalar function 1 by h1 del phi by del u, e1 cap 1 by h2 del phi by del v, e2 cap plus 1 by h3 del phi by del w, e3 cap, right? Same thing we are going to consider over here, that this del phi, this del phi will be written as 1 by h1 del by del u of phi, here 1 by h1 del by del u of phi e1 cap, so 1 by h1 del by del u of this one phi means this scalar h1 a1 into e cap, not dot, this is into, okay, into e1 cap. Likewise second term will be 1 by h2 del by del v of phi e2 cap, so 1 by h2 del by del v of phi, here phi is your h1 a1 e2 cap. Third term will be 1 by h3 del by del w of h1 a1 e3 cap, cross del u is there, del u, right? Now here you can see that this cross del u can be operate for this term and this term, right? So before that we are going to do something. Here you can see that e1 cap by h1, we know that its value is what, E1 cap by H1 is nothing but del U. So instead of E1 cap by H1, we can write del U. E2 cap by H2, del V. E3 cap by H3, del W, we can write. So here E1 cap by H1 is there. Can be written as del U. So here del U by del U, del by del U of H1 A1. This one, E1 cap by H1, that is your del U. Likewise, E2 cap by H2 will be del V. E3 cap by H3 del W, we can write cross del U. Now this cross del U can be operated for this terms. So this term cross this term del U. Here del U cross del U will be 0. Here I have been written. Then this term cross del U, that means del by del V of H1A1, del by del V of H1A1, del V cross del U. Here del by del W of H1A1, del W cross del V, del U, right? So now we found del cross this much is equal to this term and this term, that is nothing but del cross A1 H1 del U equal to del by del V of H1 A1 E1 cap by H2 cross E2 cap by H2. Why? Here you can see del V and del U can be written as del V can be written as del E2 cap by H2, del U can be written as E1 cap by H1, right? Same thing it has been written. So instead of del V, E2 cap by H2 cross E del U will be written as E1 cap by H1 plus del by del U of H1 A1 del W cross del U. Del W can be written as E3 cap by H3 and del U we know that E1 cap by H1. Same thing it has been written E3 cap by H3 cross E1 cap by H1. So that implies del cross H1 A1 del U will be equal to, here you can see H2 H1, both are scalar, so the denominator will be H2 H1. Here E2 cap E1 cap will be minus E3 cap. Previously already we have been discussed. This is your E1 cap, E2 cap, E3 cap. So clockwise will be positive, anti-clockwise product will be negative. So here E2 cap cross E1 cap, E2 cap E1 cap minus E3 cap. So minus del by del V of H1 A1 E3 cap H2 H1 plus here E3 E1, E3 cross E1 will be E2 plus, so del by del U del W of H1 A1 E2 cap by H3 H1 H3 H1. Let this is your equation number 3. Here equation number 3 is represents the curl of the first term of the RHS of the equation number 1. So curl of the first term of the RHS of the equation number 1. Similarly, second term and third term can be written as, similarly by considering second term of RHS of equation number 1, that is your del cross H2A2 del V. Del cross H2A2 del V will be how much? Minus del by del W H2A2 E1 cap by H3 H2 plus del by del U of H2A2 into E3 cap by H1 H2. Let this is your equation number 4. So how we can remember this term? Here you can see del cross, here del U is there. Okay, when U is there, first term will be minus del by del V should be. So likewise here del cross del V is there, means minus del by del W. So U after V, so here V after W. So minus del by del W will become. So here U is there means H1 A1, V means H2 A2, right? Now here you can see that H2 A H1 H2 H1 is there. That means for U, just consider H1, U refers to H1 and V refers to H2. So here if U is there, so here it has to become H2 into H1, and if it is 2 and 1, then this will be E3 cap, right? And the second term will be always positive. Next here del by del V, so it will be del by del W, and H1 A1 will be constant, H1 A1, and here H2 H1, then H3 H1. Here U is there means H2 H1 first term, in the first term H2 H1, in the second term it will be H3 H1, and here H3 1 is there means in the numerator we have to write E2 cap, here 2 1 E3 cap, here 3 1 E2 cap. Likewise here V is there, so next is your W, so minus del by del W. V means H2 A2, or you can consider here it is H1 A1 is there, so H1 A1 H1 A1 H2 A2 H2 A2 H2 A2. So V is there means first minus del by del W H2 A2, then second one will be after W will be U, so del by del U same H2 U2 H2 U2. So here V is there means H3 will become, see U is there H2 H1, then H3 H1. V is there means H3 H2, okay, then H1 H2. See here U is there means H1 H1 is common, so after U V will be there means corresponding H2 H1 H3 H1. So V is here means H3 H2, then H1 H2. H3 3 2 means numerator will be E1 cap, 1 2 means E3 cap. Let this is your equation number 4. Similarly, third term we can write W, that means minus after W it will be U, minus del by del U, then del by del V. Okay, here H3A3 H3A3 H3A3. So here H3 is there means H3 divided by H3, H3 will be common. After H3 what next? That will be H1. So H1 H3, then H2 H3. So 1 2 1 3 is there means E2 cap, here 2 3 means E1 cap. Let this is your equation number 5. Like this you have to remember. Now here the del cross of the second term of the RHS of the equation number 1, this is your third term. So now we are going to substitute 3 4 5 in our equation number 1. Okay, in equation number 1, carefully here we have to watch this term. As usual it has been written over here. Okay, this term as usual it has been written, nothing changed. This term as usual it has been written over here. Just I substituted in equation number 1 only, that's it. Now del cross A will be, here you can see that among these all the terms, here you can see that 1 2 3 4 5 6 terms are there. We have to arrange the terms belongs to E1 cap, here another E1 cap, E2 cap, E2 cap, E3 cap and E3 cap. So carefully you have to watch. The first two terms are belongs to E1 cap are this one and this one, right? So here you can see in the denominator H3 H2 H3 is there, so taken outside 1 by H2 H3. So in bracket this term I have been written first because this is positive, so del by del V of H3 A3, del by del V of H3 A3 minus del by del W of H2 A2, del by del W of H2 A2 E1 cap. Now we are going to consider E2 cap. So E2 cap is this term and another term is this one. So here H3 H1 H3 H1 taken outside 1 by H3 H1. So this one is the positive. First we have to write del by del W of H1 A1, del by del W of H1 A1 minus Second term is this one minus del by del u of H3A3. Del by del u of H3A3 whole into E2 cap. E2 cap. Next, third term is belongs to this one. E3 cap. E3 cap. Here E3 cap. Right. H1 H2. Here H1 H2. Taken outside. Del by del u. This is the positive. Del by del u H2A2. Del by del u H2A2 minus del by del v H1A1 minus del by del v H1A1 E3 cap. Okay, so this is the required expression for curve in orthogonal curvilinear coordinate system. So this entire expression can be written in the matrix form as 1 by H1 H2 H3 matrix. Here H1 E1 cap, H2 E2 cap, H3 E3 cap, del by del u, del by del v, del by del w, H1 A1, H2 A2, H3 A3. So if we are going to write in the expand form of this matrix, we can get this one. I am going to go for the first term. You just watch. First term will be how much? E1 H1 cap. Here you can see H1 E1 cap, H1 E1 cap into del by del v of H3 A3. Del by del v of H3 A3 minus del by del w of H2 A2. Del by del w of H2 A2. Right. And outside your 1 by H1 H2 H3 is there. 1 by H1 H2 H3 is there. So here H1 got cancelled. We can found 1 by H2 H3 del by del v of H3A3 minus del by del w of H2A2 E1 cap. This is the first term. Whatever here it has been written, that 1 by H2H3 del by del v of H3A3 minus del by del w of H2A2 E1 cap. Likewise, second term and third term also can be evaluated from this matrix. So either you have to remember this in this format or this format, no problem. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this video. In our next class we are going to discuss Laplacian operator or del square in terms of OCCS. Okay.